What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. I'm Katie Mox, and we've got a great show for you today. You're with us for the next hour. We are talking NFL futures, specifically the NFC, which y'all know excites me. So let's bring in the stars of the show, the best of the best when it comes to SportsLine. We've got Alex Selznick, the guy they call Propstarz, killing it in the prop market. We got M Squared, data engineer for SportsLine, and of course, R.J. White, the managing editor of SportsLine. Fellas, always a treat to have the three of you with me. We're talking all things NFC today, which you know excites me, and it excites Propstarz as well. Two of our favorite teams are in this market. We'll probably get to the AFC a little bit later, but let's get right into it right now and start with the top. Who is going to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl out of the NFC? When you look at the odds boards here, the two teams that were in the NFC Championship game last year, the 49ers and the Lions, are at the top of the odds boards. You got the Niners at plus 290, Detroit at plus 260. RJ, we'll start with you. Who do you like?
I like the Lions. You can get them at a reasonable price. I've seen plus 600 in the market. That second half collapse in the NFC Championship is something that can really focus a very good team into making that leap into championship caliber. You know, they know they let it slip from their fingers there, and they should have, had better. So I like the additions they made on defense and DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport up front. I like the cornerback additions they made, Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold, and Enos Rakestraw in the draft. They have one of the best offensive coordinators to lead an elite offense. The special teams coordinator was voted top 5 last year in the NFLPA poll, and I think that matters with the new rule. I think that if you have a good special teams coordinator, you could really start flipping the field of play here with how these kickoffs are going to work out. So biggest concern for me is if the Packers make the leap and win the division. I don't want Detroit going to Lambeau in January, obviously, but if they can win this division, I think that they have a really good shot at being the champions of the NFC.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. I mean, they came so close last year, just a couple of risky calls by Dan Campbell there, and maybe they would have been in the Super Bowl. We've got some agreement on the other two guys, and I disagree with this one. Propstarz, who do you like to take it for the NFC?
Katie, this may come as a big surprise to you, but I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles here, and this is not a homer pick. I just really believe that this Eagles team has one of the best rosters in the NFL, if not the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom, and I absolutely love what they did in the offseason. Starting with the coaching staff, adding offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore and defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio that looked like massive upgrades to this coaching staff. Eagles really struggled down the stretch last year. And then they add a piece like Saquon Barkley, who's just a dynamic playmaker to an already loaded offense. Defensively, they add a lot of key players as well. Bryce Huff, Devin White, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Then at the draft, they absolutely have a fantastic draft, adding 2 of the top defensive back prospects in the NFL, and Cooper DeJean, as well as Quinyon Mitchell. Just tremendous value from the Eagles there. They also did a tremendous job of locking up a lot of their homegrown talent. They signed Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown to extensions. You've got a healthy Jalen Hurts, one of the best offensive lines in football. They invest heavily in the trenches. They're going to win at the line of scrimmage. I love this Philadelphia Eagles roster. You don't win on paper, but I really believe this is one of the more talented rosters in the NFL, if not the most talented. So I'm going to take the Eagles here.
What he said, I love the Eagles. Obviously, definitely not a homer play here. But look, this Eagles roster, I think, is one of the most talented, if not the most talented in the NFL. And I really think they've addressed a lot of their concerns on the defensive side of the ball. But it's also about scheduling. When you look at this schedule here, there's an interesting one in that neutral site game week 1 against the Packers. But if they're able to get through that game, I really believe this team starts the season 6-0 ahead of a matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they're able to do that, I think they're going to put themselves in contention for that top overall seed, which is going to be very friendly and allow them a decent path to potentially get to the NFC Championship game, which is what we're looking for here. I like the Eagles, though. Again, adding Saquon Barkley, as Alex said, running backs don't matter a ton for a lot of teams. I do think it will in this particular offense, though. We've seen so many times with their little tush-push play. This team really only has to gain 8.5 yards at any given first down, and that is a huge edge. I think they're going to be like Kansas City, have long, sustained drives where they take half a quarter off the clock at a time in this new-look offense. Love the Eagles here.
Mike, you talk about that tush push. I don't know. No Jason Kelsey. Might be a little bit different this year without the guy that really bore the brunt of all of that. But Propstarz, I see your homer pick, and I'm going to raise you. I'm taking the 49ers here. I'm taking chalk. And yes, I realize it does sound like such a homer pick, but much to what Propstarz just said, when your team happens to be the favorite and one of best in the league, what are you to do here? Look, guys, Brock Purdy was one of the most efficient passers in the NFL last season, and he retained all of his pass catchers, elite pass catchers. You see him on the screen here. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, I know there's some drama surrounding Brandon Ayuk right now. He has requested a trade, but the Niners said they have no intention of trading him. I don't think that he sits. I think that this gets worked out. The 49ers have made it to the NFC Championship game 4 times in the last 5 years, and 2 of those years resulted in a trip to the Super Bowl. So yes, it's chalk. Yes, it's a homer pick, but I do think the 49ers, even at chalk, offer some value here. So let's pivot and let's talk about some long shots. Anyone further down the board, we'll start with you, Mike McClure, that you found some value in for the NFC.
I'm looking at a rival to your 49ers. It's the Rams here. Look, this Rams team, I think, continues to be a little undervalued. If you look back to the last half of last season, this is a team nobody wanted to play, especially as you got to the playoffs. They were a few plays away from potentially making a very, very deep run last year. You watched one of those games also. They played an incredibly tough game with a team like the Baltimore Ravens, ultimately losing on a punt return in overtime. But this is a great team, and I think they continue to be undervalued and kind of overshadowed by that San Francisco 49ers team. But I like the depth that they have. I think they've only taken another step forward. We know that they have terrific coaching. I think the Rams here make a lot of sense as a long shot.
I like the Rams as well, guys, but I'm going to do you one better, a bit of a more of a long shot here. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I really believe this is one of the more underrated rosters in the NFL, Katie. Top to bottom, I think this team is very good. We saw last year down the stretch, this defense really came on strong, really bought into Brian Flores' defensive scheme. Then in the offseason, they added a bunch of key starters, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, Jonathan Gennard, who had double-digit sacks for the Texans. They have a bunch of viable starters. You look at the Vikings roster on paper to start the year, they look like they have one of the least talented teams in the NFL. I think they really overachieved, but they added a lot of talent. Offensively, however, they are really stacked. I think they have a tremendous coaching tandem as well with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. Offensively, we know about Justin Jefferson. We know about Addison. They're stacked at wide receiver. They add Aaron Jones, who is a significant upgrade over Alexander Mattison, who is one of the least efficient running backs in football. Kevin O'Connell, despite the carousel at quarterback, was still able to field a very dynamic passing offense. So regardless of who plays quarterback, I'm very confident that O'Connell will be able to get a lot out of the position. So I look at this Vikings team. I think they're going to be very competitive. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this season. I really like them as a long shot.
Yeah, I like Mike's Rams pick. They factored into my Super Bowl betting strategy article that was up on SportsLine this week, but I went with the Vikings too. I mean, what if Minnesota is good at quarterback? Kirk Cousins has had been some up and down seasons, pretty good, solid veteran. He was on a nearly 5,000-yard pace last season in O'Connell's system before his injury. And so when you're replacing that kind of production, you might not going to get a 5,000-yard quarterback, but if you get somebody pretty solid, and Sam Darnold has been solid in his career, J.J. McCarthy, a high first-round pick, whoever's starting at quarterback, they might be set there. The defense took a few weeks to get its footing last year, took a big step forward under Flores. Like Alex was saying, the team overall strong at the pass catchers, strong on the offensive line, strong in the pass rush, including adding Dallas Turner in the first round of the draft to go with the quarterback they drafted. So if you just throw out the quarterback and disregard the quarterback, I like this roster better than Chicago, who has twice as short as odds in the NFC. And if the quarterback is good, then why are we not getting the similar odds? So getting 40-1 with the Vikings, I think, is a very valuable play here.
All right, so we got some agreement there, and I like that. I don't know if y'all have been watching the Receiver show that's on Netflix right now. Very interesting. Justin Jefferson is on it. It was very interesting to see the highs and lows of last season. I do think he is primed for a big one this year. And you bring up Sam Darnold, RJ. A lot of people were betting on Sam Darnold last year to win the MVP. I think he is kind of a sneaky good quarterback when given the opportunity. But I'm going to agree with Mike on this one and also go with the Rams. And pretty much agreeing with everything that you just said there. You look at this offense, you got Matt Stafford, you got Puka Nacua, you got Cooper Kupp. It's amazing. Yes, they lost Aaron Darnold, which should be a huge loss for anybody, right? I mean, quarterbacks around the league are rejoicing. However, they did take care of that in the draft. This is a team that nobody wanted to see in the playoffs last year. I was worried that my 49ers would come up against them down the stretch. They won every single game except for against the Baltimore Ravens, who are arguably one of the best teams in the AFC last year. So love the Rams. We got 2 for the Vikings and 2 for the Rams. But now we're going to go long shot on this one. And I'm going to start with you, Propstarz. Who do you think has the most value to win the Super Bowl this year?
I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles again here, Katie. This is a team that won 11 of the first 13 games, really, broke down at the end of the season. I really think you can chalk a lot of that up to coaching, though. I think the locker room got lost a little bit there. I don't think that'll be the case this season. I think this team's going to be highly motivated. They went out, they added a ton of talent on both sides of the football. They're extremely young, a lot of emerging players on both sides of the football. They added Saquon to this already highly prolific offense, locking up guys like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown as well. I think this team is motivated. I think their arrow is pointing up. I think the Eagles here are a good shot to win the Super Bowl.
I'm right there with you, Proppy. It's the Eagles for me. I like the price point. And look, I understand the bunching there, but I really don't think the NFC is that deep in terms of legit Super Bowl contenders. I think there's 2 or 3 teams at the top, and that's really kind of it. So for me, it is a lot about the regular season still, because I think that the playoff seeding in that conference is going to be critical. And I think that the schedule sets up friendly for them to potentially be competing for that number 1 seed, which is going to make all the difference in the world here for me. So I like both sides of the ball, but if they can stay healthy, again, this team's going to look a little bit more like Kansas City, in my opinion, taking long drives, keeping that defense off the field as much as they can.
I do like y'all's Eagles pick. I wouldn't mind splitting a unit and going half on y'all's and half on mine, which is going to be the Lions again at 13-1. Ben Johnson returned because he thinks this group is special. I think they're better than they were last year. They go into the season with the confidence they can beat anyone. They'll have the coaching edge against most teams. And with San Francisco, I mean, they're the clear favorite here with the odds. Have to fight off the Super Bowl hangover. We know that has affected teams in the past. Have to deal with the contract drama at receiver we talked about. And then Christian McCaffrey, a massive workload the last 2 years, starting to get up there. I worry that if he's not effective as he was the last couple of years, the upside of that team gets lowered a little bit, and then a team like the Eagles or Lions can sneak in. So I like the Lions here at 13-1. I think that's the best value you're going to find in the NFC.
Hard to argue with anything that y'all said. And look, I know you think I'm going to go 49ers on this one, but I am not. I can't go chalk or homer on everything. Propstarz. But I will say, if anyone can beat the 49ers, it has to be the Rams. One, they're matched up well against each other. They're well coached. I just talked about how amazing their offense is. I think they've taken care of some stuff on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team that was really sneaky good last year. I think they're going to be sneaky good this year. And when you look at this 49ers team, like you said, RJ, if there is that Super Bowl slump and we see them not perform as well this season, then I think that the Rams are primed to take that. So I'm going to take them. I like the value here at 30-1 for them to win that one. All right, guys, this has been very fun so far, but don't worry, we've got more coming up. And while you're at it, if you like SportsLine and you haven't signed up yet, please do so. You get 60% off with the promo code MOXIE. You can scan the QR code on the screen right there or head to sportsline.com/join. And don't go anywhere, people. Coming up, we get in more depth in the NFC future markets. Wagers on division winners. Can Kirk Cousins lead the Falcons? Who knows? We'll see what Deebo Samuel can do as well. Keep it locked here, Early Edge. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to The Early Edge. I'm Katie Mox here on CBS Sports Network, and we are joined with our guys, Mike McClure, R.J. White, and Alex Selznick. We're talking all things NFC today in the futures market. Let's go ahead and dig into some win totals here. There's a lot of love for the Eagles on the show, division winners for this. A lot of love for the Eagles here, so we'll start with you, Propstarz. That's your team.
Yeah, it is, and I'm going to pick them to win the NFC East here, about even odds, Katie. And as much as I like the Eagles and I can wax poetic about them, which I've already done previously, this is more of a fade against Dallas Cowboys, who I really think are the Eagles' biggest competition to win the NFC East. So while I think the Eagles maybe have the best offseason in the NFL, if we're talking about free agency, the draft, the coaching upgrades, Dallas maybe had the worst offseason on paper, followed by, in my opinion, a lackluster draft as well. Really just did not add anyone in free agency, lost numerous starters to the Washington Commanders. I really just see this Dallas team taking a step back. I'm not even sure they're the second best team in the division at this point. I think a lot has to go right. I think there's a big gap, honestly, between the Eagles and these three teams here. So I think the Eagles should be longer favorites to win the NFC East, especially with the offseason that the Dallas Cowboys had. So they are my choice to win the NFC East.
I'm with you again, Alex. It's the Eagles for me. I made the number 60%, so minus 150 is where I think this number should be. And it is mostly due to the Dallas Cowboys. I think Dallas has a few interesting things to work through, really on both sides of the ball, but particularly that offensive line. They're going to get tested early, week 1 on the road. I have them losing that game to the Cleveland Browns, and then they play the Ravens week 3. I'm really questioning the depth that team has as well. So while I think Washington can be sneaky at times, I think this is the Eagles' division, and I think they're going to have a pretty sizable lead early in the season, just the way the scheduling works out. So give me the Eagles here. Again, 60% should be minus 150.
And the market agrees with you guys. I mean, these two teams were pretty close earlier in the summer, and we're seeing that gap widen. So people are betting the Eagles here. I want to point you to another team. 5 teams finished top 10 in points scored and allowed last year. And those were the 49ers and Cowboys, the Ravens and Bills, and the New Orleans Saints of all teams. They outscored the Chiefs, the Texans, and the Packers. So this team can score points. And I know Derek Carr isn't exciting. He did tie for 3rd in interception rate last year. He played well, despite the team going through those offensive line issues that we know were a major problem with them, especially at the tackle positions. It's a wide open division. And so that's really the play here, is find you a long shot you like in this division. And New Orleans, I think, has a much better defense than Atlanta. And the offense could be even better with Clint Kubiak at offensive coordinator. They did not rest on their laurels despite that high point scored number and the low interception rate for Carr. They're out there trying to get better. So I think getting the Saints at plus 425 is great value here.
All right, and I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys on this one. I got to break up the Eagle love here. Y'all are really high on them. I'm not so sure. I don't know if I trust them. I still think that the NFC East is definitely a two-headed race two-horse race between the Eagles and the Cowboys. And Philly, to me, look, guys, that locker room is a little bit broken, all right? They lost 6 of their last final contests, including in the playoffs. You look at Dallas, they went 4-2 in the NFC East last year. They went 8-4 in the NFC overall, and they are bringing back their biggest key pieces, right? Coach, I know McCarthy gets a lot of flack, but I think he is a great coach, quarterback, and also their star defensive player in Micah Parsons, who've led them to 3 straight 12-win seasons. I know there's some questions when it comes to the pass catchers and Dak this season, but I do think that this is still going to be a good one for the Cowboys. I think we are overvaluing the Eagles just a little bit. All right, we're going to switch gears here and talk about the NFC South. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, so I gave you one pick there. I'm actually going to dive even deeper. I also like Detroit. I've talked about them. I'm with Mike on Philly and Alex on Philly. I'm not going to repeat that. Let me try to sell you on the Panthers here. The offense could not have been worse last year, but Dave Canales comes in. He just helped revitalize Baker Mayfield's career. He was part of that huge game for Mayfield before he came to Tampa and then had a great year here in Tampa. I'm giving him a chance to do something here with the former number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young, who was very disappointing last year. And they made major investments around him, upgraded the offense at running back, receiver, tight end, guard. And so I like this offense to take a step forward here. And the new coaching staff kept Avero at defensive coordinator for a reason. He's a very good coordinator. The defense was only 29th in points allowed, but 4th in yards allowed. They were just put in awful situations all year because of that offense, and I think they have a lot more upside that could be apparent here. The biggest point just overall is that no one should be 12-1 in a division without a legit great team in it, and I do not think the Falcons are a legit great team. So I'm taking 12-1 here on the Panthers just as a value that should not happen in a division like this.
I completely agree with you, RJ, and that is why I'm also looking in the same division just with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Look, I think that they've given this division on paper to the Atlanta Falcons, and I think it's a little too early just considering that roster and everything there. This roster was kept intact mostly. I know the team largely overperformed last season, but it's not impossible to see it again. The schedule is relatively friendly, but it's really about this conference or this division overall. I think the Bucks number should be down to plus 180, and I don't think that you should be laying anything on the Atlanta Falcons at those current price points. So just a little bit of a value play here, as RJ has kind of mentioned with those two teams. I think that there's way too much value or way too much respect being given to the Atlanta Falcons. I'll take the Bucks here as they kept that unit intact.
I really like both of those picks from Mike and RJ here. And I'm going to shift my attention to the NFC North. And I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. I'm surprised that we're getting a price here of plus $1.50. I really think the Lions are the class of this division. Look, I know Green Bay really came on strong, but I look at them as a serious regression candidate, and there'll be some more on that take later. And I think the Bears are being overvalued here. I do like the Vikings, as I previously mentioned, but I really look at the Lions as one of the top three teams in the NFC. I love what they did in the offseason, really made it a priority to beef up that front seven. I think they succeeded there. I also like the improvements they made in the secondary as well. And offensively, I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the NFL. I think 12 of their first 13 games are played indoors as well. So this Lions offense with Jahmyr Gibbs with arrow pointed straight up, all of the weapons they have offensively, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jared Goff, who I think could be a viable MVP candidate. I really think this Lions team is going to win 12 to 13 games, and I see them winning the division quite easily.
That was another one fun to watch on that Netflix receiver doc with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I didn't know that he spoke German. I didn't know he was fluent in German. So that was a fun fact. I'm going to agree with Mike on this one and take the Buccaneers to take the NFC South. Guys, they're the only division winners last year that are not favored to win this year. And like you said, they've given this one to the Falcons on paper, but there's so many question marks. Who's playing quarterback? The defense is still a little bit suspect. And this Bucs team really found a way to finish strong last year, getting into the playoffs, winning a game, beating the Eagles. All right, in the playoffs last year, they re-signed Mike Evans, who has been nothing but consistent throughout his career. So I think this is going to be a really good one for the Bucs. I think they're being undervalued here as well. All right, guys, we're going to move on here when we return and talk some player futures. Who will lead the league in their respective categories in the NFL this season? Stick around to find out. You're watching The Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. Back on The Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. Guys, we're talking NFC this entire time. Let's get into some stat leader wagers, some futures. It can be any position, anything you want. We could do receiving yards, rushing touchdowns, touchdown passes, you name it. We'll start with you, RJ. What's the stat leader you like for the NFC?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit of a long shot here with Jahmyr Gibbs to lead the league in rushing touchdowns at 28-1. Grab this number at FanDuel while you can. It's much lower at other books, so it really matters where you're getting this price. But I love the 28-1 number. Detroit had 23 regular season rushing touchdowns between David Montgomery getting 13 and Gibbs himself getting 10, which I think probably is more than people think because Montgomery's kind of seen as the more the goal line back, the Punisher, do more work between the tackles. Gibbs had 0 until week 7, and then he had 13 total, including the playoffs. Montgomery had 6 in his first 4 weeks, then 9, including the playoffs. Really seems to be a transition here to get Gibbs more involved. He obviously was a breakout star as a rookie. I think they're going to put more on his plate last year, give him an opportunity to carry a bigger load. I think the upside is there to reach 15 rushing touchdowns or more and be in the mix here to win this award at such long shot odds. I think it's a play you should make.
I like that one, RJ. I'm going to look at rookie receiving yards. To lead the league in receiving yards as a rookie, Malik Neighbors is the guy I want to target here. I think it's truly a two-horse race, just considering all the situations here. And Marvin Harrison Jr., while he is a fantastic player and no doubt will have success at this level, I think he's got more competition for targets on that team. And I think that team's going to be actually somewhat competitive. The Giants, I don't think will be super competitive. Meaning I think we see some more situations where they have just obvious negative trailing game scripts. They're going to continue to put him out there on the field. I think he's going to see enough targets. I think there's going to be big days for him in some of those situations where they're, again, trailing by multiple scores in games. So I think these two should be a lot closer when it comes to this, because I'm pretty confident Neighbors is going to be on the field from week 1 on. So give me Malik Neighbors to lead rookies in receiving yards.
I absolutely love both of those picks from RJ and Mike. Couldn't agree more with Malik Neighbors. He's also my favorite wide receiver, favorite rookie wide receiver. I'm going to turn my attention to one of his teammates, though. That's Kayvon Thibodeau. I like his chances to lead the NFL in sacks. You can get this at 75-1 odds, which I absolutely love as well if we're talking about the price point here. But he's coming off an 11.5 sack season, former 5th overall pick, certainly has the draft pedigree, and he is firmly entrenched as the starting defensive end for this Giants team. Going to play heavy snaps. Again, really productive last year. The Giants went out, they brought in Brian Burns to play opposite of Thibodeau, who's an elite pass rusher, also has Dexter Lawrence. They have a talented front seven. It's going to take some of that pressure off of Lawrence, free him up, not have him be double team. And I just think first-year defensive coordinator Shane Bowen is really going to place a heavy emphasis on turning these guys loose. Thibodeau has his eyes set on 20-plus sacks. He is talking about all offseason breaking the single-season sack record, which I really think he's going to have a legit shot, and that's 75-1 odds. Coming off of double-digit sacks in year 3, one of the more talented defensive players in football. Tremendous value here, Katie. So I love his chances to lead the NFL in sacks this year.
Well, look, Giants fans don't have that much to look forward to this season, so you might as well, Giants fan, take this one. Take the most sacks for Tibbs here at 75-1 to have them. I love it. And again, there's nothing really to look forward to in New York, so if you want to get excited about something, this is a great bet to look into. All roads lead back to the 49ers for me, guys. Give me Christian McCaffrey to have the most rushing touchdowns this year. It's at 8-1. Obviously, McCaffrey coming off of the most dominant of his career, right? He led the league in NFL rushing and in scrimmage yards, co-led for the most touchdowns with Raheem Mostert at 21. 14 of those were rushing. Of course, he won the Offensive Player of the Year, signed a 2-year, $38 million extension, got married. I mean, the vibes are high in the McCaffrey family right now. And I do think we will see a little bit of regression with him when it comes to yards, just that year over year. And like you said, RJ, he was such a workhorse last year, but he's still the guy at the goal line that you're going to get it to. And the 49ers do have enough pieces to march down the field. So I do like him to have the most rushing touchdowns this season. And again, that's at 8-1 for McCaffrey. Let's now look at some season awards. Mike, you and I both like an offensive rookie of the year, but we differ on who it is. Who do you like?
I like Jaden Daniels to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I do think it's the two-horse race again in this particular market, most likely. But when I look at Daniels here and compare him to someone like Caleb Williams, I think Caleb Williams has got a much better defense and is going to find themselves in competitive games, some of which could be lower scoring. And when I look at Daniels in the schedule they're going to face and the teams they face, like the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles in division, those games are going to be high-scoring games. They're also going to be able to put up points on a team like the Giants in division. And you look at this offense, they're going to let him be a dual-threat quarterback at times, but I think he's actually got a competent number of pass catchers to throw the football to. So while I do think that you could look further down and look for big years out of some of these wide receivers, I really do think it's coming down to these two high-profile quarterbacks at the top. And I think they should be a lot closer in price point here, just because I think Daniels is going to have more opportunity to put up some of those big numbers in those trailing game scripts that they're likely to see.
I like that pick a lot, Mike, and it's hard to argue with Jayden Daniels, especially when you look at the disparity, as you said, in the odds there. But I'm still going chalk on this one and taking Caleb Williams. I am drinking all of the Chicago Bears juice, right? Maybe that's going to taste a little bit sour as this goes on because we haven't seen him in the NFL. But when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, he has the best situation that we've seen from a #1 overall pick. I mean, you just look, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. The defense was great down the stretch last year. They've made some adjustments to the O-line for him. So I think it's going to be really great. In fact, the last time that the Bears had an Offensive Rookie of the Year award, it was Anthony Thomas in 2001. So if the Bears are as good as I and the public thinks they're going to be, hard to say it's not going to go to Caleb Williams. Not a lot of value there, pretty chalky. If you're looking for some value, certainly go with what McClure said. RJ, what are you looking at for your season award?
Yeah, I'm going to flip to the other side and go Defensive Rookie of the Year. I love this race this year because it's so wide open, with the first defensive pick being made at number 15 overall. You get Byron Murphy here, was taken one pick later. I love his odds at 14-1. He enters a beautiful situation with Mike McDonald as his new coach. He can be McDonald's versatile Justin Madubuike chess piece, rack up sacks from the interior, do some damage all around the defensive line, and really exploit those mismatches on the interior of the line, especially. Without the premier edge talent this year, I think Murphy could have a Rookie of the Year campaign similar to Aaron Donald, where he had 9 sacks as a rookie, but he was just so dominant at times, and he took over games at times, and you could just tell how good he was going to be. I don't know that Byron Murphy's going to be Aaron Donald. Frankly, no one is, but he has a little bit of that in him. And at 14-1, I think there's a great chance that he wins Rookie of the Year.
And I'm sticking in this same category, RJ, but I'm looking at Jared Verse here at 11-1 odds to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. He was taken 19th overall by the Rams, a rare first-round pick in the Sean McVay Rams era. Jared Verse was incredibly productive in college, 2-time All-American, and then all he did testing-wise was have a 9.6 relative athletic score, which is by far the best of any defensive prospect in this class as far as players in the front seven are concerned. He is slated to play heavy snaps for this very young and emergent, talented front seven of the Rams, who had a very good draft class last season. I think Verse is going to be very productive in year one. And I look at the competition, or at least the players in front of him. Dallas Turner, who just simply wasn't very productive in college. He's an incredible athlete, but I don't think he's there yet as far as a football player is concerned. And then Leatu Latu of the Colts, they have a very deep, talented defensive line rotation. I don't think he's going to play enough snaps if that Colts team stays healthy. So I look at Jared Verse. I really think he has a good shot of having double-digit sacks. I think he plays heavy snaps year one, and I think he's going to be productive right out the gate. So I like his chances quite a bit at 11-1 odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Interesting. For season awards, we all went in the Rookie Player of the Year market. Obviously, a lot of promising prospects for the NFC heading into the upcoming season. But don't touch that dial, people, because we've got more on the way. In fact, we're going to look at win totals for the NFC. You know, Mike and I disagree on one thing, and it's about this team right here, the Eagles. Over, under 10.5. We'll tell you what we think coming up next on The Early Edge. Back on the Early Edge here on CBS Sports Network, joined with Mike McClure, Alex Selznick, and R.J. White. We're talking all things NFC. Now we're going to get into some NFC win total wagers. We each have two, but we're going to do one round first. I'll start with you, R.J.
Yeah, I'm going to take some of the hype out of the overinflated market that is the Bears that you talked about earlier. You can get their under at 9.5 wins, under at minus 155 at MGM. I think it's probably an average team at best. You know, getting Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze is big, but they did not have many picks otherwise in the draft. They used one on a punter, which isn't going to, move the needle any. And drafting Odunze means missing out on a chance to fortify the offensive line or to improve the defense, which I think was a little bit overrated. They played great down the stretch. They did play a lot of mediocre quarterbacks too. So for me, Detroit and Green Bay look way ahead of Chicago, and it's hard to project 10 wins out of the third best team in a division where I think Minnesota can be competitive too. So minus 155 is a lot of juice, but under 9.5, I just don't see this as a 10-win team.
I love that pick. I love that pick, RJ. And I'm going to stick in the division, guys. And I'm going to actually fade the Green Bay Packers. A little bit of an unpopular take here. Getting plus money, though, under 9.5 wins. This opened at 10.5, where I personally pounced on it. But I still think there's value at under 9.5. I look at this Packers team as a major regression candidate. If I look at last season, I think everything broke right for them. They stayed extremely healthy. Jordan Love performed very well down the stretch. I just look at this roster. I don't think they're as talented as some people may believe. I think the lack of having a true number one wide receiver or really option in the passing game can hurt them. Yes, they have a bunch of good number two, number three type wide receivers, but they don't really have a go-to guy. I also think Josh Jacobs being the centerpiece of their running game may come back to bite them a little bit as well. He has had some massive workloads over the last 4 or 5 seasons on the Raiders. I don't know how much he has left in the tank personally, despite being 26. He may be one of the oldest 26-year-old running backs you will see. Defensively, they're young, but this, outside of Xavier McKinney, just not a lot of additions to this team. I just really think this Packers team had everything break right in their favor. They performed well above expectations. I don't think that'll be the case this season in a very competitive division. When you have teams like Chicago, while I love RJ's pick, I think they're going to be improved. We know Detroit is going to be very good, and I also think the Vikings are going to be a lot better. So I just think 10 wins is a big ask for Green Bay. I think they settled in around 8 or 9 personally.
And I'm looking at those Philadelphia Eagles once again here, Katie. I went over the win total, 10.5. I have their median wins at 12 and can make the case for 13. When I look at the schedule, I think it's just so friendly with all of these matchups in division deferred to the second half of the schedule. If they're able to win that neutral site situation in Brazil, I think that they're in a great spot to go 6-0. I love the fact that, you can circle that Browns game, but they've got a bye right before it to prepare for that team. I think this is a great spot to back the Eagles. Again, I have this team at 12 wins for a median situation here. Love the over 10.5.
All right, I hate to burst the Eagles bubble here, but give me this under 10.5 for them. I believe it's a plus 110. Guys, the Eagles went 1-6 to end the season last year. No Jason Kelce. They've got new coordinators. I love Vic Fangio, but I think it might take some time to get under that. And, they've got a really tough schedule. You kind of talked about some of the plus sides of the schedule, but 11 of their 17 games are against teams with a winning record. They have to see every team in the AFC North, arguably one of the toughest divisions in football. I don't know about it. They've gone under their total in 7 of the last 8 seasons when it has been 10 plus. So give me this under on the Eagles. People thought I was crazy last year. It ended up cashing. I didn't feel too good about it until the second half of the season when they did a nosedive there. But who knows? Stranger things have happened. Let's do another round of this, RJ.
Yeah, I'm taking the Falcons to go under 9.5 wins at plus 120. I mean, they haven't had a winning record since 2017. Their supposed quarterback upgrade is a quarterback coming off of a major injury. I don't know how he's going to look coming off his Achilles tear. And the defense really needed to add a blue chipper in the draft instead of Michael Penix, and they did not do that. I'm not sold on their pass rush. The schedule does set up well for a good team to shine. A lot of people are taking their over because of the schedule. I'm not convinced this is a good team, though. It feels like an 8-9, 9-8 team. I'd much rather play them to miss the playoffs at plus 175 and get that as the better valued, because I don't think a wild card's coming out of this division. But in terms of win totals, really like the plus 120 on under 9.5 here.
Couldn't agree with you more on this one, RJ. I mean, this team has not won more than 7 games since 2017. We're bumping them up to a double digit. Way too many question marks here when it comes to the quarterback. And then also, you look at this defense that was super suspect last year. We don't know if it's going to be Cousins. We don't know if it's going to be Penix Jr. there. I can't do it. So give me the under on this as well. Mike, what do you think?
I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings here. We're talking about Kirk Cousins. You watch what this team was able to do last season, really with anyone that they threw out there at quarterback. If they just get league average quarterback play, I think this team's capable of winning 8 games, and you're getting plus money to go over 7.5 here. I know they've got big names on the schedule like the 49ers, the Texans, the Jets, who I think will be good. A game is in London, but you still got matchups on the schedule like the Titans, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, the Falcons, and then those division games where I think they're going to be able to be competitive. So I think this is a 8-win team. You've got the most talented wide receiver in the NFL, in my opinion, in Justin Jefferson, but the weapons that they got a massive upgrade in the backfield as well. I think this team wins 8 games.
Love that pick, Mike. And I'm going to go back to the NFC South here. I'm actually going to take the team that's won 3 straight division titles. Very underrated. And I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Bucks to go over 7.5 wins. This one's juicy, but I just see this team, frankly, being amongst the best teams in the division and what I would consider the worst division in football. And if we're talking about continuity, this Bucks team has more continuity than any team in the division. They're returning basically every starter to the team. Really saw Baker Mayfield look at home last season. Really came on strong. The offense played well. They even had a running game led by Rachaad White. Defensively, I think they have the best defense alongside New Orleans in the division. So I think this team's being slept on, not getting enough credit because of all the splashy moves Atlanta made by getting Kirk Cousins. Give me the Bucks, who I feel like are being undervalued, to go over 7.5 wins.
Probably you're not the only person that thinks this is the worst division in football, but that's music to Mike and I's ears because we certainly like the Bucks to win the division as well. Thanks, fellas. We are going to take a quick break here, but when we return, it wouldn't be a future show without some long shot bets. We tell you where the value is in the NFC that might be worth a little bit of a sprinkle. Coming up on the Early Edge. Back on the Early Edge talking NFC futures. We're going to get out of here soon, but before we do, we got to give you the long shots. We got to give you some worth a little bit of a sprinkle. Propstarz, we'll start with you.
Katie, you know long shots like my second language here. So I'm going to go with Sam Laporta, tight end, to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. You can get this at 35 to 1 odds. Sam Laporta just had the greatest rookie season by a tight end in NFL history, had double-digit touchdowns as well. And we know this Detroit Lions offense, led by Jared Goff, they love to pepper their tight ends. Really a big portion of Ben Johnson's offensive scheme is moving around the tight end. In year 2, I just think Laporta is headed for just a monster season. Again, Jared Goff likes to look for his tight end more than any quarterback in the NFL. He's not really throwing the ball downfield very much. So I think Sam Laporta is going to be heavily utilized in the red zone. I also think this Lions offense is going to be as explosive and dynamic as any team in the NFL. So they certainly will have no shortage of scoring chances and red zone opportunities for Laporta. So he's in a prolific offense. He's got a quarterback that loves targeting the position. I just think Sam Laporta has a great shot, especially if we're talking about 35 to 1 odds, to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns.
I like to go way off the deep end when we're talking long shots, and I have one I like at 150 to 1 that I wanted to highlight here, but it's something you got to get right now, and it's Blake Corum to lead the league in rushing. And this is really dependent on Kyren Williams. You know, maybe he shows up to camp fine, maybe he stays healthy through camp, and maybe he has another great year, but foot issues have plagued him since entering the NFL, and the Rams drafted a running back earlier than anyone expected on day 2 in this past draft, considering how effective Kyren Williams is. I think they want to take some of the load off his plate. And then if there's any re-injury, Corum rolls into a situation where an unknown running back, Kyren Williams, just finished 3rd in rushing yards, well supported on offense. Teams are going to have to play this passing game primarily, and there's going to be room to run underneath. I think it's worth a lottery ticket play now because any negative Kyren news, whether it's showing up, still hurt after he missed OTAs, or whether it's getting hurt in camp, this number is going to drop considerably because there's going to be a lot of hype on Blake Corum. So 150 to 1 to lead the league in rushing here.
It's kind of music to my ears, kind of not. I like the Rams. So I like that you think that Corum could lead the league in rushing because I like the Rams as a long shot to win the Super Bowl. This team was awesome down the stretch last season, a play away from beating the Detroit Lions in the playoffs, lost that game by 1 point. And I think they only got better. You look at them offensively, they did draft Corum. That 1-2 punch of Kyren Williams and Corum, and then that receiving core. You've got Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. Demarcus Robinson had a massive resurgence with the creativity in that offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they picked up Tre'Davious White, got Jared Verse as well. And they get to play the 49ers twice a year, get a lot of experience in that matchup. I think this team has a shot here because outside of the top 2 or 3 in this conference, I think it's relatively weak. Love the price point here, 30 to 1.
Hard to argue with any of that. I thought I was going to have the longest shot here, but then RJ comes with the Blake Corum pick. I wrote it down. I'm going to fire on that one. I do love that one. But why not go from zero to hero? Why not go from worst to best, worst to first, if you will? The Bears You tried to burst my bubble, RJ, but I'm taking it. Bears to win the Super Bowl at 40-1. Look, I think if this team is as good as they are on paper, they're going to shock a lot of people, win their division, and possibly make it all the way to the Super Bowl. So that will be my long shot here, Bears to win the Super Bowl. On behalf of all of us here on The Early Edge, thank you so much for rocking with us. Don't forget to join the daily podcast of The Early Edge. You can watch it now. Scan the QR code on your screen right there, or you could listen to it on anywhere that you get your podcast. This is The Early Edge. Thanks for hanging with us.